Hello fellow island adventurers, glad to have you along for the adventure again. We're out here on another hike up at the Bonshaw area, and we're taking a look at the Bonshaw Hills trail system today. So this one is a bit of an interesting trail, that's for sure. I really enjoyed it. I've hiked it a couple times, but I haven't hiked it too much, so there's a lot on this trail that I haven't really experienced, and I'm looking forward to finding out some of those new little areas and trying to see if I could find some new interesting points of interest here. I've got a couple, and I'm going to go to a couple places that I haven't been before today, so I'm excited to do that. However, I did want to cover another topic while we get on this. I did want to note a little bit of information and maybe a bit of tips and tricks about what to do when your hike goes south. You know, when things turn out to be not so great, not as you planned, maybe the weather conditions turn on you, and anyway, it amounts for a terrible hike. So, how do you bring a terrible hike back to something that's worth keeping on with, or when do you bail out? Well, we're going to talk a few tips about that today, and we'll see where that takes us. Hopefully, it takes us someplace interesting. And I'll tell you right now, the Bonshaw Trail System, it definitely has a lot to offer. So, before we head on any further, let's take a look at the stats, let's get a look at the map, and we'll pick it up.
Our trail today is located off the Trans-Canada Highway in the Bonshaw Hills Provincial Park. The Bonshaw Trail System is packed with a variety of loops that vary with respect to difficulty. The front end of the trail is wide and frequently trafficked, but the deeper sections are more footpath and offer closed-in atmospheres with challenging grades. I'll be focusing on a custom loop that includes the Witch's Way and the Sawmill section. This afternoon, our route will bring us up and down some big inclines and set us up for some picturesque views along the river.
So the Bonshaw Trail is a really accessible trail. That's how I'd characterize it. It's accessible for those who want to do a really quick trip in the morning because it has a lot of front end loops off the trailhead. That makes it really easy if you want to bring your kids in, if you want to walk your dog, or if you want to do a quick bike. And of course, this is open to bicycles. This is open to fat tire bikes for the snow. Like in this condition is really good for that. But it also offers a lot of long trails, so you can get deep into this trail. Like we saw on the stat sheet, we've got about 14 kilometers worth of trail loop to deal with. So today, the plan, well, I think that's just going to be to stick mainly on the main trail for me so far, but we're going to go and look for the Witch's Way loop and the Sawmill Trail loop. And it's going to be some work to get there, though. So let's face it, folks, not every single trail we go on is going to be awesome. There are going to be some trails out there that are just going to be flat out terrible. And it's not so much the trails that do that to you, because I won't say there's any bad trail in Prince Edward Island at all. I haven't run into anything like that in my time hiking through the woods, tearing it up on the dirt roads and the ATV trails on KLR 650. If you're interested in that stuff too, by all means, here's a good video to get you started on the motorcycle adventures. But there is room for a trail to kind of turn on you when the conditions turn on you a little bit. So one of the biggest things is you end up getting into a situation where it starts to rain, and that's very frustrating. So let's start from the ground up. Now, last hiking video that we did, we talked about boots. And we talked about how important it is to take care of your feet. In a rainy situation, or when there's sleet and a lot of slush on the ground, the first thing that's probably going to notice if you don't have proper footwear is that your feet are going to get soaked. And that can get uncomfortable to bad really quickly if you don't take care of it. Now, the first thing I'll say about that is to make sure that you have all sorts of socks that you can swap into. And also having a good waterproof boot. But it's really hard to judge the conditions sometimes. Like I said, you could be at mid-hike and things can turn on you. Like today, for example, I can tell you right now, it's calling for rain. But I planned this hike so it would be a little bit before the rain happened. So I'm watching the weather, I'm making sure, that's one of the obvious things. But at the same time, I prepared a little bit more inside of that. So in my pack, which is fairly decent today, you know, I got about, I think 25 pounds at this time around. I've got a full rain suit that I can equip and jump into in case things start to get rainy. And as well, I opted for the Gore-Tex boots today. And these are going to keep the rain off me for sure. So one of the really cool parts about this trail is the steps. And you might be able to get a bit of a workout too in them. There's a lot of steps. Good leg out workout today. But this will connect us over to the Witch's Way, which is what I'm interested in. And then taking that will allow us to get into the Sawmill Trail loop. I definitely wasn't lying when I was talking about inclines. I don't know if you can see it on the camera right now, but there's definitely an incline going on in these parts. We still have lots of hill to climb, so let's keep moving. So back on the subject of trying to make the best out of a terrible hike. Again, I'll say this is not a terrible hike. This is a fantastic hike. I'm really enjoying this. And the Bonshaw Hills Trail should not be considered a terrible place to hike. But, like I said, conditions can get the worst of it. So, what can ruin a hike? Injury. Yes, that's right. If you are watching this and you don't have first aid, I would strongly recommend going out and getting it. You know, if you work at a place, sometimes if you bring it up to your supervisor that you're interested in getting first aid, they'll sponsor you to go on a first aid course. And you can find, you know, other courses that you can just pay a fee to get into. But it's so worth it. Like, I think mine is good for like 2 years. I get it every 2 years. But an injury is definitely a terrible way to ruin it. Sprained ankles, a fall, like a serious fall, man, that's bad. If you ever get into a situation like that, the best way to prevent that from happening is to, one, prepare yourself, keep an eye on the trail and keep focused. You know, don't carry around GoPros on selfie sticks and constantly pay attention to the camera instead of pay attention to where you're going. I'm just kidding. But always make sure you have good cell phone service and see and understand where you can get at emergency medical response teams like EMS teams. That's very big. They can get into the trail and get you out, that's for sure. Another good way to prevent that from happening too is to hike with someone else. If you're hiking solo, you know, it's a little bit difficult. Maybe someone won't be able to treat an injury or wound, and that'll ruin a hike for you for sure. Last, if you are going solo and you are hiking solo, before you step off, number one, tell somebody where you're going. Number two, say when approximately you're going to be home. And number three, well, just keep an eye on the trail, I guess. But overall, like, you want to avoid that. That's the game ender right there. So we've reached the Witch's Way, which I'm sure has nothing to do with the fact that there's a witch living here. I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. It's probably not a thing. Let's hope it's not a thing. Let's stop talking about that. How's that sound? What was that noise? Anyway, so the idea behind this is that it gets a little bit more deteriorated. And we're starting to see some old pieces of the sawmill that we're coming up on, because part of this is the Sawmill Trail, which is very interesting, I find. But you get that nice trail deterioration start to come in. And you start to find some of these parts which you can kind of shoot off of to kind of explore a little bit. Now, one of the things about the Bonshaw area and the Bonshaw Trail here is that it sits on the West River, so you get a lot of really cool river scenery if you're willing to go and take a look. So to be tested by the rain is the ultimate test when you're hiking and camping. If you are suffering from terrible conditions like torrential downpours, it's going to ruin your hike really quickly. The best advice I could give you there is just make sure you pack extra clothes and make sure that you're not afraid to set up a day camp with a fire to dry things out, change it all out, and then keep going. That's the best advice you can have, aside from just having waterproof kit. But then again, the tricky part about waterproof kit is that it doesn't breathe very well traditionally. I mean, sometimes you can buy some jackets and pockets and things that'll be able to open up vents, kind of like a motorcycle jacket. But still, the intention is to keep water out. So it's likely going to keep water in. But you can also purchase material that's made out of Gore-Tex that does have a little bit of breathability to it. And having that kind of kit with you is a great way to make sure that you have something to keep yourself dry on the inside. Again, if you're out in colder weather, make sure you're monitoring your heat, your body heat. Now, I can tell you right now, going up and down all these hills, fighting against some of this ice, I'm already overheating, so I'm layering down. But in the rain time, if it's raining, you don't have a lot of options to layer down, which makes setting up a day camp a pretty good idea. It gives you a chance to set up a tarp, get out of the rain, sit down, reset yourself, and maybe layer down underneath some of the waterproof material and waterproof kit you have on over top. So the next bit of advice I could give to you about trying to mitigate a terrible hike is, well, it's two parts. Number one, if you get a bad vibe, if the conditions aren't really good for a safe hike, and you can't prioritize safety, don't go on the hike. It's that simple. How many times have we watched a television show or a movie or something like that where we saw somebody get stranded in the middle of the woods and they just keep on making terrible decisions? And we just scream at the television, why would you do this? Why would you go on that hike? Don't be that person. I mean, take a look in advance. Look at the forecast. Look at the trail conditions if you have access to them. And judge for yourself and use your judgment that you've earned over time doing these hikes to figure out whether or not it's just best to just stay at home and pour coffee and enjoy being in the warmth of your house. The second part of this is, if you're on a hike and the conditions do get bad, again, use your good judgment. Use the judgment that you built over the hikes before. And don't let pride get in the way of doing some harm to you. Know when it's time to stop. If you're all soaked, or if you feel like you don't have enough kit to keep going, don't let it ruin the adventure. The adventure's already been had. You've already made good memories. And maybe some of those memories are experience that you can use to make sure that you're safe the next time around. So maybe stop, change your kit out. Maybe stop entirely and turn around and head back. There's no shame in doing that. There's more shame on just pushing against experience. Knowing that you have something in the back of your head telling you you shouldn't go any further. The adventure needs to stop because we've got enough already to be safe. Listen to that. Anyway, I'm doing great today. Against all that negativity, I guess. All those dark thoughts, I guess we should say. But I'm feeling pretty good. We hit up the Witch's Way, we hit up the Sawmill Trail, and we got a really good look at some nice features on this trail. But again, as always, there's definitely more to this trail. There's so many other loops, and it's very accessible with multiple points, and the trail markings are very excellent. If you don't see one for a while, you can always turn around, but likely you're going to find a trail marker to tell you where to go. But as always, there's lots left on the table of this trail. There's lots left to explore. And even though I didn't explore it all today, well, I'll leave that for your adventure, and you can come on out here to the Bonshaw Hills Trail in Prince Edward Island and check it out for yourself. Until then, and until the next adventure, take care, folks.